Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am Leslie, and today I would like to talk to you about how to start a budget. So on this channel, I talk a lot about budgeting and personal finance, but I haven't really explained how to get started if you've never had a budget before. So the first step is to understand why you need a budget. To be honest, I think everyone needs a budget, but know your specific reasons. Do you have debt to pay off? Are you trying to build savings or retirement? Do you want to just have more money for vacations? Whatever the reason is, just know your reason so that will keep you motivated to keep a budget, because consistency is really key when you're keeping a budget. The very first step you need to do is to track your income and your expenses. You need to know what you're working with. So it's important to know what money you have coming in and where all that money is going. So this is particularly important if you're an overspender, if you find you're spending all of your paycheck before you get your next paycheck, or if you have debt. It is so important to know where all of your hard-earned money is going. For me, that's basically what I did over pretty much all of 2024. That was the first time that I tracked my income and expenses for an entire year. So I got a really nice picture of how much money I'm bringing in, where that money is going, and what I need to work on. It was really eye-opening. So I highly recommend doing that. You don't have to do it for an entire year before you start the budgeting process, but if you can just do it for a month, a couple months, 3, 4, whatever it is, to kind of get an idea of what your spending is like. So related to the first reason, as far as your motivation, you need to set long-term and short-term goals. So these are things like, do you want to buy a house? Do you want a certain amount of savings? Is there a certain amount you want for a vacation? Have some concrete numbers or even percentages to factor into your budget. Keeping track of these goals can really keep you on track and motivated with keeping up with your budget. So this next section is going to be kind of long. I'm going to explain the different types of budgets. I'm just going over a general overview. If you hear one that sounds interesting, you can always look up more information about that particular style. There are just so many ways to budget that it would be hard to fit all of them into one video. The very first one is one that I would say I started with this, but honestly, I kind of combined some of these budgeting styles all into one. So you don't have to pick one set one. You can kind of combine pieces from different ones. So this one is the 50-30-20 rule. So this means you will spend 50% of your income on your needs, 30% on your wants, and then 20% on savings and debt payments. So this is, like I said, the one that I really liked, and it's mostly what I focused on last year. I think it's a really balanced method. The only downside is it might be hard to get your needs to 50% of your income if they're currently much higher than that. So this is good for people who naturally have their needs fall close to that 50% mark. Then you can have the 30 and the 20 kind of adjusted so that everything falls into place. A similar way is going to be the 80-20 method. So this one's a little different, where 80% is your expenses and your savings, and then you have 20% to use on discretionary spending, so your wants. So this kind of simplifies everything, and it's just a simpler method of the 50-30-20. I still think I like the 50-30-20 better, but it's up to you what works for you and your family. One that is really popular that I see a lot on YouTube is zero-based budgeting. So this is where you assign every dollar to a category. So this means you will zero out at the end of the month. So every single dollar is allocated to something. It is a very controlling way to budget. So it can be time consuming, and it's not very flexible because of how you're dividing everything up. So some people really like that because of how much control you have, and it sets really strict limits. Some people don't like it because of that inflexibility. You decide whichever you like. Another popular one is going to be the cash envelope system. I'm sure you've probably seen videos pop up of people doing the cash stuffing. I actually subscribe to some of these channels because I find it just sort of relaxing to listen to, like while I'm cooking or cleaning. So with this one, you can kind of see the downside already, and that's that it is cash based. So if you're someone like me who does a lot of digital, like online spending, or someone who, I have an online bank, I just don't really deal with cash that much. So this one wasn't for me. But if you're someone who likes dealing with cash, you like seeing the money in front of you, this could be a really good budgeting method. You basically allocate cash to each of your categories, and you write the category on an envelope. So you have like your grocery category, your electronics, miscellaneous, you have your bills, like you have all these envelopes, and you put cash in each envelope. Once that envelope runs out of cash, you are done with that category. So this is another one that's really not that flexible, but it can be good if you're prone to overspending and impulse purchases, because it makes you stop buying certain things because you just run out of cash for that category. The next method is pay yourself first. This one, I understand the theory, like I understand the thought behind it, but I don't think it's practical for everyone. So basically, you pay yourself first, just as it says. You allocate a certain percentage to savings before you pay anything else. So this one really prioritizes savings, which is fantastic, but in reality, not a lot of people can do their savings first, because what if you put your savings aside and then you run out of money for your needs or your bills? I definitely kind of lean towards this now, especially with retirement, because I mean, retirement money generally comes out of your paycheck before you even get it. So if you're doing retirement savings through like a 401k with your employer, you already kind of do this method in a way. So this is one that I think combines well with other things, but I don't know. I think it can make things difficult if your income is low. So this one may not be the best for everyone, but keep in mind it is important to have some kind of savings factored into your budget. So I really like that about it. The next one is the no budget budget. This is one where you are tracking your income and expenses without breaking them into categories. So you're basically just you're saying, hey, I have this amount of money, and then subtracting your expenses from it. So you basically pay your needs, save a little, and then just keep subtracting the rest on just whatever you want to buy. So you can kind of see the downside is that you still might not know exactly where your money is going. So it's very vague. So the next one is the anti-budget budget. This one is a super minimalist budget, and it's kind of similar to the pay yourself first, meaning that you set aside a little bit for savings and the rest is just up for grabs. So you might set aside like 20% savings, and then you just use the rest on whatever you want. This one is obviously really flexible because you're not allocating money to certain things, but it can lead to overspending because you're like, hey, I set aside my savings, I have all this money, I might as well spend it. So that's the only thing about the anti-budget is you need to watch your overspending, because you might actually have more to save than what you allocated in the first place. There is one more. So this isn't exactly a budgeting method, but it's a good way. It's more of a debt payment method. So this is the debt snowball method that you've probably heard of. This one is great for people with a lot of debt. If you have a lot of accounts, you're going to start with the smallest account first and pay that off. This leads to a quick win, so it can keep you motivated. I mean, it's amazing to pay off an account. So seeing yourself pay something off can keep you motivated to keep paying other things. So you start with the smallest amount, pay it off, move to the next smallest, and you keep going. The only downside is that this doesn't prioritize the highest interest rate. That would be the avalanche method. So that's where you would start with the account that has the highest interest rate. So you could kind of combine these methods. If you have a lot of accounts, look at both the total amount and the interest, and maybe you can find one that's kind of in the middle on both. Maybe it has slightly higher interest, slightly lower amount, and just work on that first. So knowing these methods I think is really important because it can give you a way to tackle some of that debt, especially if you have a lot of different accounts. So those are the different budgeting methods. So once you decide on a method, the next step is to create your budget. Pick whichever way you want to track everything. Maybe it's a spreadsheet or an app. Maybe you're just using a pen and paper, whatever you want to do. I personally prefer spreadsheets. I can link the one I use in the description. I thought about making one, but I just don't really have time. And the one that I bought on Etsy, I absolutely love it. So I'll probably just stick with that one. So what you're going to focus on is your income minus your expenses, because you don't want to be spending more than what you bring in. As you go through your budget throughout the month, you can make adjustments just in case you're starting to spend a little more than you need to. You can adjust some of your categories and change things up as you need to. So then what you'll need to do is also prioritize savings and debt repayment. This is one that I kind of struggle with, because how much do you save and how much do you put towards your debt? One way that I decided is I looked at the interest rate for my savings account and for my debt. So when I had 5 student loan accounts, the highest interest student loan account was around like 7%, while my savings account was only giving me like 4% interest. So I definitely wanted to pay off that 7% account, because I was getting a lot more interest on that loan than what I was earning in my savings account, if that makes sense. So that's one thing you might want to look at. My lowest interest rate student loan is actually a little bit less than what I get from my savings account. So that one I can take my time a little bit more to pay off, because I am earning more interest on my savings account than what I'm accruing in my student loan account. So that's just what I did to kind of help me decide how to divide things up. If you have a really high interest rate account, so something like a credit card or a store credit card, those are awful as far as the interest. You definitely want to be prioritizing that. I would say you still want to save a little bit, because you do want to have a small emergency fund. I know different people recommend different amounts. I think, does Dave Ramsey still recommend 1,000? That honestly, 1,000 sounds low to me, because that's like half my rent. So I wouldn't even get a whole month of rent. For me, I would say at least a month of living expenses, maybe more like 3. But again, if you have that really high interest debt, especially depending on your total balance, it might make more sense for you to work on that. So yeah, I don't know. Just look at whatever works best for your family. I'm not any kind of financial advisor. I'm just telling you what I decided on and the reasons behind it, and maybe that'll help you decide what you should do. So after you start your budget, the next thing you'll want to do is adjust as needed. So it's a good idea to set aside a certain time, maybe like weekly. You could do it daily. I think daily is a bit much to be tracking everything. I usually do mine weekly. Honestly, sometimes last year I did it monthly because I would just forget. And I was more focused on tracking than anything last year. But a month is a little long. I would say ideally is probably a week, and that's what I'm shooting for this year, is hopefully once a week, updating everything. Because you'll want to see if you're spending too much in certain areas, or if your budget is working for you. If you are new to a budget, which I guess you are from watching this, then you want to see if the budget method you've chosen is actually working for you and your life and your family. The next thing to keep in mind is to remain flexible and don't get discouraged. I mean, you're new to this, so you're going to make mistakes. You're probably going to have times where you overspend, you don't stay in your categories, you forget to track for a month, whatever it is. You will have little bumps in the road. Just don't get discouraged. The fact that you're even watching this video and thinking about a budget, that means you're on the right track. You're doing fantastic. So if you can just get started with writing numbers down, then you will be ahead of a lot of people and better than you were before. So just stay motivated, do whatever you need to do to keep that mindset of tracking your money. I hope this video was helpful and gave you some good ideas. Make sure you look into more detail about the budgeting methods. If you heard one that clicks with you, that you might like, drop me a comment. Let me know how you feel about budgeting. Is this something you already do? Is this something you're starting to do? I would love to know what method you use. Do you combine different ones like I do? I think I just take pieces from different ones and kind of make my own weird Frankenstein budget. Just let me know. And don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.